Warm greetings to one and all. On behalf of SRM Dental College, I thank the organizing team for giving us the opportunity to conduct a PCC on tips and tricks in making facial moulage. And this is my team. I am Murugeshan, Professor SRM Dental College, and Dr. Anitha, Associate Professor from SRM Dental College, and Dr. Brinda, Associate Professor from SRM Dental College, and Dr. Suganya, she is a reader from the Department of Prosthodontics, SRM Dental College. This particular video capturing what we are doing is purely for the educational purpose for the 13th Biennial Conference of International Society of Maxillofacial Rehabilitation 2021 Pune, hosted by Indian Prosthodontic Society. And this particular copyright held by the mentors and co-mentors, that is this particular team of this particular conference. It is not taken from any textbook or article or website. We made it by ourselves. And we declare no conflict of interest regarding this. And for ease of understanding, we split the topic into patient preparation, impression materials, reinforcements, and the model preparation. While doing a patient preparation, what we need to bother about is the physical preparation and the mental preparation. Physical preparation, basically your patient position that we'll see later when you're going for it. And the mental preparation, reassuring. Patient, basically when you're going to put some lot of materials on the face and all those things, and they will have a fear of your confining to one particular space that need to be alleviated by patient reassurance, or sometimes the fear of darkness that also need to be alleviated. And now when I go into the impression materials, what we're going to do.
Now, before we start with the impression materials which are used for making facial moulage, we should understand that it is so important that we need to confine, irrespective of any impression material that we are going to use, we need to ensure that it should be confined within the areas of the defect and these associated structures. Now, for that, what we have done is we have taken modeling wax and we have softened the modeling wax and we have rolled it and made it into a form of a rope. This extension of the rope was customized based upon the particular facial surface area. Make sure that depending upon the facial surface area, you may require 2 or 3 sheets of wax ropes, which are then used for adaptation around the patient's face. Roll it, make it in the form of a rope, make sure that there are no voids, and just compress it so that it is devoid of air bubbles. Now you can see how the wax rope is now ready. Now this is a slide to show you the armamentarium which are used for making impressions of facial moulage. Now we are going to show you various impression techniques which are employed for making facial moulage. The first technique that will be shown will be your conventional impression technique with your irreversible hydrocolloid, which is your alginate. Now for that we will require for manipulation of the material, we will require the material and the measured amount of water. And for backing the material or for reinforcement, here we have employed a gauze pads. And then after that, we have overlaid it with plaster of Paris. Now, once the armamentarium is ready, then we proceed to the adaptation of the wax ropes. The wax ropes are now ready. You can see how many strips of wax ropes have been prepared for adaptation over the patient's face.
Okay, now coming on to your yes. Now coming on to your patient position. Ideally, the patient is reclined, or still better, make the patient lie on the table. That's more convenient for making your impression. Why? Because that particular position, it is easier to apply your material, and the muscles will be in a more relaxed manner, wherein you can capture all the details, and the gravity that itself will stabilize your material what you're going to use in. And then all the facial hair, there shouldn't be any makeup, no eyeglasses or whatever it is, and Vaseline is going to be applied all over the hair, so that while removing the impression, it will be easy for you to retrieve it properly. So now you can see we are applying the Vaseline on the hairline. Of course, we are supposed to cover all these areas with a sheet or a drape, so that whichever area is required for the impression, that alone will be exposed. Yes. The next step what we are doing is we are just closing the ear with a piece of cotton. This is not only for this particular ear, wherever you're going to make an impression, the defect you're going to cover with your cotton. But still ideal is a piece of gauze with this coated with the Vaseline, wherein you can tie the string. If you can push it into the defect area, and you can make impression. By any chance, if there is going to be any emergency or some untoward incident wherein you want to remove this particular one, the string what I applied onto the gauze, it's easy to retrieve. So this is going to be more ideal rather than keeping a cotton. And not only in the ear, as I told you, the defect areas and all the unwanted undercuts wherein you want to block it, you can do this technique.
You can use the same technique for concealing the nares as well. In case the patient has any difficulty in breathing, you can tell the patient to lift the hand, and it's so simple to pull out with the length of the gauze. You can instantly pull out with the length of the gauze, and so that the patient is able to breathe with ease. This is to show you the length of the gauze which has been secured onto the gauze piece. Now what we are doing is we are adapting this wax bead onto the patient's facial area. Now because we have applied Vaseline, and as you know that this is this material does not adhere to the face easily, what we have employed is we have employed a simple trick of using your stapler pins, your regular stapler pins. Now this we will show you. Before that, we will show you another technique which can also be used. This is a sheet of your OPG X-ray film, which has been stapled. Depending upon the circumference of the face, you can adapt this X-ray sheet onto the patient's face as well. This is another technique. You can also use orthodontic wires, which can be the outline of the facial form can be drawn onto a cardboard paper. You can cut the cardboard sheet as well and use that also for adaptation. Another technique is you can also use boxing wax. You can use boxing wax to create the boundaries so that you limit the flow of material onto the unnecessary areas. Sorry. You can cut the excess of the X-ray film. In case you feel that the X-ray sheet is excess, you can just cut it off, or you can just staple the extra sheet. This is the stapler pins which have been employed to attach the segments of the wax bead adapted around the face. The regular stapler pins which can be used instead of concealing it with your wax spatula. We have mechanically retained the stapler pins with the help of stapler pins. Now, once when you're double sure that the boundary is created for the extension of your impression material, now here in this technique, we have used alginate. Now, alginate, please remember that there are various impression materials which can also be employed. In previous years, reversible hydrocolloid, that is your agar-agar, was employed. Agar-agar is a reversible material and it is very accurate, and it can be painted very easily onto the defect area. But the limitations of agar impression material will be you need an expensive equipment, and it requires a lot of conditioning and liquefaction. You need to have the entire setup for handling of the agar-agar impression material. And the pure strength of agar impression material is quite less. So there is every chance that the agar impression material can get teared off easily. So you need to have a backup when you use reversible hydrocolloid. And then you also have impression materials like impression plaster, which was also employed previously. But impression plaster is a rigid material. It can flow easily, but the problem is when the defect has an undercut, when you retrieve the impression, there are chances that the impression can break off. And it's not advisable to use impression plaster in areas of fresh wound, or when the socket or when the defect area is not healed adequately, or when you feel that there is a lots of secretions. You cannot use impression plaster as an impression material. That is why here in this technique we have used irreversible hydrocolloid, which is an easy material, and all of us know how to handle it. It does not require any costly equipments, or it can be it's an elastic material. It can be used in areas of undercut. Only thing is, same with the reversible hydrocolloid. For alginate also we require, this material also requires a rigid backing after reinforcement with either plaster or orthodontic plaster bands. Now, before we commence with the impression procedure proper, I'm sorry. This is to show you how the airway was kept patent for this patient by